Okay, this is what your final product should look like. And you'll see you have three shafts. The furthest one on the left has four gears on it, and the middle shaft has a gear that's always in contact with those four, but it slides back and forth and adjusts which of the gears that's actually going to be attached to the wheel gets turned and by which gear. All right, for this project, to begin with, I'm going to just get a piece of metal seat channel, and I'm going to get it 1 by 2 by 10. And then I'm going to get a larger piece of 1 by 2 by 25. And that's it for the moment. And we'll separate those two so we can see what's going on. And what I would like you to do first is create a sliding mate between these two and see that it works. So the sliding mate feature is right here. It's called slider mate, and you select it, and then you'll be picking two surfaces to slide against each other. So when you're doing this, you want to make sure that you are, like, say I want it to go back and forth this way. It follows the Z axis. So I want to find a point on it, for example, something like this that's pointing like so. Yeah, something like that. Boom. And then I'm going to attach it to a part somewhere like in the middle of this. That's also doing the same thing. Boom. And I'll probably have to do some tweaking on that. It's just a little bit over. So for one, I want to flip that upside down. That looks pretty good. And then we're going to offset it a little bit in this direction, which looks like the X. So we'll offset about the X, and that's probably about 0.2 inches if I had to guess. Maybe a little bit more. I'll call it 0.22 inches, 0.24 inches. Okay, well, we don't have to go too crazy with it. Hit play and see how it works. And there it goes, sliding back and forth. Um, it's important to note that the piece that you put second will stay stationary. Next, I'm going to insert a um, gearbox of sorts. If you go into brackets, metal gearbox bevel, etc., I'm going to use this metal gearbox worm. Just gives me some nice structure to work with, and bring it over here. Then I'm going to hard fasten it to the part that's moving. Right now it's this part that's sliding back and forth. So I'm just going to give myself a hard fasten on probably the edge of this, something like that, and then come over to this and place it, say, right there. And then check out what happened. That needs a flipping. And it looks like it needs also a reorienting. And that's good enough. If you wanted to push it over a little bit, that's fine, but that's going to work for what I want. And so now I've got something down there attached. You know, how we're going to attach that in the real world, we'll have to come up with a different option, but for purposes of our demonstration, that's going to work fine. And if I were to animate the slider mate, I should see that move as well. Yes, and that's coming along with it. Good, stop. Next, we're going to insert an axle. We're going to find the 12-inch, the biggest axle that there is. And there it is. We'll take one of those. And we're also going to get, let's get a gear. And we'll take a 36 tooth gear and put it in place. And we'll also get a 60 tooth gear and put it in place. And we're going to put a revolute mate between this shaft and this gearbox. But first I'll put the gears on it, and we're just going to hard fasten the gears to the shaft. So we'll go fasten, and we'll do this 36 tooth gear first. And the exact final position of these we're going to worry about later, but for now we're just going to pop it on there. And we'll offset it a little bit just to get it off the edge. So I don't know if that's 3 inches or -3 inches, but it looks like that's a -3. That's fine. And we're going to put one more fasten mate in there between this other gear. And the shaft as well. And maybe I'll just come in on this side for this one. And also I want to push that over a bit, and that's on the Z. And that's probably another 4 inches I'd like to go, but that's a negative 4 inches. And just look at how far apart they are. That's good, and the box can fit in the middle, so that'll work for now. I'm going to say good on that. And now we're going to put a gear relation, I'm sorry, a revolute mate in between the shaft and the gearbox. So go to revolute, and we'll pick the gear, I'm sorry, the shaft. And we'll go into this and pick the very bottom. And then we're going to need to offset that as well, and that's along the Z. So I want that to be, halfway through it, basically. So pick 6 inches and say check and see what happens. Pretty good. And I do see that the gear is touching that metal piece right there, but I'm not going to go crazy about that. I could put a small spacer or something between this and that, but for the purposes of our demo, that's going to be fine. And now if I check my Revolute Mate here, 1, and animate, that should be spinning along nicely. Good, check. And I got my slider mate, and we know that works, but let's just double check that that looks like it's working all right. And that's going back and forth. And so new thing here, this is called the rack and pinion relation. So a rack gear is typically a gear that's like a straight line that another gear can roll over, and that's what this is demonstrating. And this is how you can put a relationship in between a sliding mate and a revolute mate. So we'll pick the rack gear or the rack and pinion option, and then we'll pick the slider mate and the revolute mate and say check. And now if we play either one of those, we should see them both work together. So let's take a look. And sure enough, we've got a slider and something revolving.